Hi, I'm Matthew of castingacross.com. Something that I've really enjoyed over the last 5 years of putting articles out on the website is book recommendations and reviews. Fly fishing and literature go hand in hand. It's an incredibly contemplative activity and it spurs people to be creative, put pen to paper or keyboard to internet these days. I also have a great relationship with fly fishing books. Most of what I learned when I started picking up fly fishing when I was a teenager, I got from the local library. I'd spend hours poring over guidebooks, learning about local streams and faraway places. Most of the tactics and techniques that I picked up came from some of the premier names in the books that they'd put out over the last 20 or 50 years. I also delved into some of the classics of fly fishing literature. And so what I've started doing on the website is compiling all of my book recommendations and reviews in one spot. I do think that reading is a great way to kind of use our brains in a different way. For all of the wonderful resources that we have online, both in video and digital format, there's something to be said for holding a book. And so I wanted to offer up a few quick book recommendations as I start this new part of castingacross.com. The first book is called Ed Shenk's Rod Trouting. This is perhaps one of my favorite books, partially because I fished in the places that this book talked about. I fished alongside of Ed Shenk. Ed Shenk was a kind of a famous South Central Pennsylvania angler who just passed away earlier this year, and this book is wonderful. It's a great example of kind of the special genre that you find in fly fishing. It's a combination of narrative and technique and fly recipes, and all those things kind of merge together, and it draws you in, especially if you fished in Pennsylvania or the East Coast, if you've ever cast a Letort minnow or a Letort cricket. This book is going to be a special treat for you. This was published in 1989 by Stackpole Press. It's currently out of print, but you can find it pretty easily on the secondhand market. Absolutely joy to read. Definitely would suggest it. Another book that's about a spring creek is called Spring Creek by Nick Lyons. A lot of people know about Nick Lyons from the Lyons Press, but this is a book that chronicles a summer that he spent on a spring creek in Montana. It's a special book for me, not this copy. This copy's crisp. I've only flipped through this one. The copy that I read was given to me on a loan by a friend who had property that fronted a spring creek that I fished over the course of a summer. So there's this great little parallelism with my life as well as what Lyons is talking about. But this came out in 1992, but it quickly became a classic, just a wonderful story. One of the great things about fly fishing is that it draws you into a sense of place, which is a literary concept of as you read it, you become just acquainted with not just the water and the fish, but also the people and the characters and the culture that surround it. And Spring Creek does a wonderful job of that. Before I move on to my next book, something that one of my favorite authors that's not in fly fishing said is that for every new book you read 2 old books. I think that holds a lot of water because there's a lot of books that come out and there's a lot of books that have stood the test of time. And so although diving into new books is certainly worthwhile, there's something to be said for leaning on those classics. So I would encourage you to do that. But this new book, which came out just in 2019, I think is destined to be a classic, at least in my shelf. And that's Squaretail by Bob Mallard. Squaretail is a love letter to brook trout. It's a guidebook, but not in the GPS coordinates and fly recommendations by month sense. It's a guidebook. It talks about brook trout, where to find them, some of the premier places where they've been caught throughout the country, and a lot of history. So it's a really good meld of a lot of different sub-genres into one book. If you love brook trout, if you love beautiful pictures of beautiful places and beautiful brook trout, then I would absolutely recommend Squaretail. It's a book that I only got a few months ago and I just tore right through it. It's a wonderful book and it's something that I think you would enjoy. This was also put out by Stackpole Press. Now I'll put links to all of these books on the show notes of this video, as well as on the corresponding page on Casting Across. But as I alluded to earlier, I would highly suggest you check out this new page on Casting Across, which is a compendium of all of the book reviews. And you can find links to where you can get them on that page also. If you have any recommendations for books you think I should check out, that I should read and then distribute to my audience through a recommendation either by video or on the website, then please don't hesitate to let me know. There's a contact form on the bottom of that book recommendation page. You can also reach out anytime at matthew@castingacross.com. And when you're there at the website, be sure to subscribe so you get a new post every Monday and Wednesday and a new podcast every Friday on the people, places, and things that go into the pursuit of fish.